My name is Holly, and I'm 35 years old. I've been married for 5 years to my husband Kirk, who is 3 years older than me. Our marriage is solid, we hardly ever argue or fight. However, due to a certain incident, we ended up deciding to get divorced. I'm truly sorry. Please excuse me. My job involves editing video for television programs. Because of this, I often work overtime and my days off are irregular. That day, having pushed myself too hard recently, I developed a high fever while at work and had to take a half day off. It might be a hassle for everyone, but sometimes this is necessary. I need to rest well and recover quickly. Feeling dizzy, I somehow made it home and immediately changed into my room clothes and lay down in bed. I'm not sure how much time had passed when I was awakened by the sound of the front door unlocking. I looked at the clock, it was 5:30 p.m. Is it that time already? Sorry, I'm feeling under the weather today. As I started to get up from the bed, the person who entered the room was not my husband. Who are you? The person was a young woman in her mid-20s. And she seemed quite startled to see me. Who are you? Why are you here? I could ask you the same. This is my house, who are you? Feeling groggy from the fever, I asked her that. Then she gave a response I hadn't anticipated at all.
What? My house? What are you talking about? I've been living here for about a year now.
What?
Aren't you the one who's got the wrong room? Leave now, or I'll call the police.
True, I was delirious with fever and staggered home, but every item inside was identical to what's in my house. And since I opened the door with my own house key, there's no way I was mistaken. However, she claimed the same thing. You've been living here for a year, is that true?
Yes. Look. I even have the keys to this house.
She showed me a key identical to mine. Why do you have this?
How many times do you need me to tell you? I have the keys because this is my house. Now please, just leave. But this is my house.
For about 15 minutes, neither of us would back down, each insisting it was their own home. Seemingly losing her patience, the woman snapped, "Fine. I get it." With that, she slammed the door and left the house. Who was that just now? Why does she have the keys to this house? Is this even real? It might have just been a hallucination from the fever. I feel like my fever is rising again. Oh no, everything's going dark. Despite trying to think it through, perhaps the heated exchange had made my fever worse, and I passed out into a deep sleep. However, this wasn't just a dream.
Hey, wait a minute.
What now? I was awoken by someone shaking me. When I opened my eyes, there stood a police officer and the woman from earlier.
That's her. She's the intruder. Please arrest her right away, officer.
It seemed that what I had experienced wasn't a hallucination after all. This woman reported that an unknown woman had broken into her home. Who are you? What are you doing in someone else's house? Like I told her earlier, this is my house where I live. She's the one who entered without permission. What are you talking about? Is this woman crazy? Officer, you don't need to listen to her, just take her away quickly.
But this is my place.
The officer sighed heavily and interrupted me. Look, based on everything, it's clear you're the intruder here. What? She says she entered the house using keys to this house. If she has the keys, it's obvious she lives here. But I entered this house using my keys too. Do you have any proof of that? Did anyone witness you using your keys to enter this house? But she did too. She's holding the keys right now. You said you used keys that were by the front door, right? Where's your proof you used them? But that's because...
This suspicious behavior, it's like you're practically confessing to being a thief. Breaking into someone's house and claiming it's yours doesn't make sense without clear evidence.
Clear evidence. Her words made me remember something. That's right, there's someone who can prove I live here. And who might that be? My husband. I've been living here with my husband for 5 years. He should be home soon, so please ask him. I mustered all my strength to make that plea. However, what? A husband? Are you some kind of stalker of his? What? Got it. You targeted him and broke into this house, right? And you've even deluded yourself into thinking you're his wife. How creepy. What are you talking about? Too bad, though. He's my boyfriend. We plan to get married soon, so you won't be marrying him. Maybe you should go to jail to cool off your head, ma'am. My boyfriend? That can't be right. I was stunned by her claim that my husband was her boyfriend. Then, in that situation, the police officer said, "Is that so?" I understand. In that case, I will arrest you for trespassing. No, that can't be right. I truly am his wife, and this house is mine. Despite only being sick and resting at home, I was about to be taken away by the police for breaking and entering. Just then, when I was wondering what to do, it happened. I'm home. There are police cars parked downstairs. What happened? My husband, unaware of everything, had just returned home. Then, the woman clung to my husband's arm and pleaded. Good timing. I just called the police because a burglar broke into our house. Look, this woman broke in. She insists she lives here and even claims to be your wife, making no sense at all. Please say something before she's taken to the police station, Kirk. My husband turned pale at her appeal. Seeing his expression, I realized everything. Welcome home. Why? You should still be at work today. I came home early because I had a high fever at work. Then, for some reason, this unknown woman used our keys to enter our house, called me an intruder, and reported me to the police. Can you explain what's going on? You seem to know something from your expression.
High fever. Are you okay?
Can you not dodge the question? I'm about to collapse from the fever as it is. No, I don't know anything. You must know something. You knew I wouldn't be home yet, and the moment you entered the house, you acted as if someone was inside. That was just talking to myself. Yes, for security reasons.
Stop joking. Are those keys she's holding from you? Who is she? What's your relationship? Explain properly.
Hey, why are you silent? You've been acting strange since you saw this woman. Do you know her? Oh, I. Just then, as if someone had arrived, the doorbell rang throughout the apartment. When the door was opened, there stood a man in his late 60s. I heard from the neighbors that there was some trouble with a police officer in this apartment, so I came to check. Is there something wrong? Actually, this woman reported an intruder in her home, and we were about to take the suspect to the station. It appears that the suspect is a stalker of the man who lives here. What? How many times do I have to tell you this house is mine? I am not a burglar or a stalker or anything of the sort.
Are you still saying that? You just don't give up. Please take her away.
With that said, I will take responsibility for escorting the suspect. Everyone please go back to your lives. Saying this, the police officer started to pull my arm. The man then shifted his gaze to me and said,
Wait a minute.
Is there something else? Are you sure she is the one? Have you thoroughly checked? Yes. Do you have proof that she is the criminal? Yes. The caller had the keys to this house. And this man also seemed to know the caller, so it's clear that she is the owner of this house. Owning the keys makes one the owner? What if the caller stole the keys from the real owner? What if she just found keys dropped on the street? Would you still determine that the person holding the keys is the owner? Well. And you're saying this woman is an intruder? Surely you have clear evidence to arrest her on the spot, right? Well, when the caller entered the house, the suspect was already inside. If she is the suspect, how did she enter someone's house? There was a key by the front door, identical to the one the caller had, so maybe the suspect picked up that key and entered. If that's the case, couldn't the same be said for the caller? Yet why do you only believe the caller's story and not listen to her? Because the caller said. Thinking the caller is always right is a big mistake. Why are you, who are unrelated, so sure you can declare it a mistake? Who are you anyway? Why do you come up to the doorstep just because the police are here? What are you planning? Asked by the police officer, the man responded with a look as if he had been waiting for this moment. Me? I am the owner of this apartment. And the girl you've been accusing? She's my niece. What? This apartment has been leased to my niece since she started working. So, it's incorrect to call her an intruder. But, still. If you need proof, shall I bring the lease agreement? Please check it against her ID. What will you do now? Yes, this person is the owner of the apartment building. And at the same time, he was my uncle on my father's side. I've been single all my life. I bought this land during my working years for my retirement and built this apartment building. At that time, I heard from my brother that my niece, who had just started working, was looking for a place to live alone, so I offered her one of the vacant apartments. And that pale-faced man standing there is her husband. Since they got married 5 years ago, my niece has been living in this apartment she leased with him. I, as both the owner of this building and her uncle, can vouch for that. Is that so? As my uncle explained that this house was indeed mine, the police officer's voice gradually grew quieter. Then my uncle continued, turning to my husband. Why did you just watch silently as your wife was about to be taken away by the police on charges of home intrusion? Why didn't you clear up the misunderstanding about your wife? That is, well. That look on your face, you haven't done something bad, have you? Like having an affair or something. My husband reacted to the word affair uttered by my uncle. But he wasn't the only one who reacted. What's this now? Married 5 years ago? Who had an affair? The confused woman clung to my husband and said, Her? Are you listening? Answer her, Kirk. With everyone's eyes on him, my husband seemed to decide he could no longer hide the truth and awkwardly responded to her query. I haven't been able to say this, but I married her 5 years ago. And this is the house I live in with my wife. What? No, that's a lie, right? So, I'm the affair partner? I'm sorry. What? Sorry? What does that mean? This is a joke, right? Normally, if you're married, you wouldn't just hand over the keys to your house like that, right? Why would you? My wife's job means she's rarely home. She works late, often coming home after midnight, and her days off are irregular too. I thought you two would never run into each other if you contacted me before coming. That's why I gave you the keys to this house. So it was you who gave her the keys after all. You waited for me to be away and invited her over, and she even said she's been living here for about a year. How long has this been going on? And didn't you find it strange when you entered the house? There are women's clothes, bags, and makeup all over. I honestly thought it was strange too. But when I asked him, You asked him? He said all of that belonged to his sister. He said his sister frequently visits because she worries about him living alone. She leaves things here when she comes. And she's so nosy, he didn't want me to meet her yet. That's why he always wanted me to call before coming over. Even today, he said he wanted to have dinner together in the evening, so I entered with the spare key he usually gave me, and then you were. I see. That makes things very clear. Much clearer than my husband's explanation. So, what do you intend to do now? Deceiving both your wife and her, don't you have anything to say? Well. That was when it happened. How could you do this? Didn't you say once we saved a little more, we would definitely get married? I've always believed those words. Why would you? Apparently, my husband had hinted at marriage to her, and now that she knew he was already married, she broke down crying right there. She must have truly loved him from the bottom of her heart, dreaming of their marriage. Seeing her cry in front of me, I felt a slight pang of sympathy. Then it happened again. You, by any chance, are you Nora? My uncle, who had been observing our exchange, suddenly asked her that. What? How do you know my name?
I knew it.
Oh, do you know her, uncle? Oh, I didn't recognize you without makeup, but she works at a clothing store in the shopping mall in the next town. How do you know that? Yeah, right. I guess you couldn't recognize me either, since I'm not in my usual uniform. Maybe this will make it clear? Saying that, my uncle straightened up and salutes smartly. Oh. Indeed, my uncle, while managing the apartment, also worked as a security guard at the shopping mall in the next town. It appeared she was an employee at a clothing store there, and the two were acquainted. But upon realizing she was someone he knew, my uncle furrowed his brow and said, "But that's strange. Didn't you say you had a fiancé?" What? I heard you were living with a fiancé from high school. Is that true? Her face went pale. Like my husband, she seemed to be the type whose emotions showed easily on her face. I see, so you both were each other's affair partners. I regret sympathizing with you. What do you mean fiancé? I never. No, it's different. There are circumstances. What circumstances? You told me you had never been with a man before. Did you deceive me?
No, I didn't deceive you, but if you're going to say that, Keisuke, you were deceiving me too, right? Besides, I'm only engaged, but you were married, which is far worse.
Well, that's... Realizing they were both each other's affair partners, the two began arguing intensely. Normally, I would have yelled at both of them, but due to my high fever, I had no energy for that. If you want to argue, do it somewhere else. I'll contact you later about what follows, so please leave my house now. All I could do was shoo the yelling couple out with a gesture of my hand. Yet, my husband still tried to cling to me, attempting to justify himself. I admit I was cheating and that I gave her the keys, but to ask me to leave, that's too much. And by what follows, you don't mean divorce, right? Please, don't say to leave. At least hear me out first. His insensitive remarks infuriated me.
Enough. Haven't I been saying I feel terrible because of the fever? Now that it's clear I'm not an intruder, just everyone leaves now.
Forcing myself to yell made my vision spin. Are you okay, Holly? No. For now, please leave this house today. We can continue this once Holly's health is better. But... Didn't you hear? Okay, I understand. I will stay with my parents until I recover. I'll be leaving too. Then, I guess this settles it, and I'll be on my way too. Wait a moment, please. Is there something else? I thought I recognized you. Aren't you the police officer who works at the station near the train station? Oh, yes, that's right. How long have you been a police officer? It'll be 2 years soon. 2 years, you should understand by now how to act as a police officer, shouldn't you? Do you really think it's acceptable to claim something that can hardly be called evidence as proof? Taking one side's word and accusing the true victim as the criminal, I will make sure to report this matter to your supervisor. Do you know my supervisor? Yes. I've been friends with your supervisor for a long time. Shall I call him here right now? No, please, that's not necessary. Then, shouldn't there be something you need to say before asking others for anything? With that, the police officer bowed deeply to my uncle, apologizing.
I'm terribly sorry.
You're apologizing to the wrong person, aren't you? I apologize for suspecting you as the criminal without listening to your story. With that, the police officer apologized as if being admonished by my uncle. Then, my uncle ushered the three of them out of the house and took me back to bed. Sorry, uncle. What are you talking about? However, what a disaster. Don't think about anything today, just rest up and get well. Okay. Thank you. As soon as I lay down in bed, I fell asleep as if I had passed out. 2 days later. The fever that had been so high was completely gone, and I was back to my usual self. There was only one thing to do now. I began the final steps with help from my uncle. A few days later.
Hey! What is this document?
Oh, it's already arrived. A divorce petition and a claim for damages? What are you thinking? What do you think? It's obviously for a divorce. Is there another reason to send a divorce petition? It's not about that. Why are you suddenly pushing for divorce? Weren't you going to listen to my side? When did I ever say I would listen to your story? Besides, I have nothing more to say to you. My feelings are set, as you can see in those papers. Please, let's get divorced. I'm asking you. What? Now fully recovered, I had sent the completed divorce petition and claim for damages to my husband, who was staying at his parents' house. Apparently, he hadn't expected to be divorced, as he contacted me immediately after receiving the documents. Please reconsider the divorce. I never wanted to divorce you, Holly. It was just that. Just that? I just wanted to have fun with a younger person. I used a dating app a colleague told me about. I never dreamed it would turn into this. I was planning to break it off soon. I didn't hate you, Holly, or want to break up. But the fact is, I ended up hurting you. I am sorry about that. So, please no divorce. Well, I don't know if what you're saying is true, but I can't forgive you for giving that woman the keys to our house. Right? You let her use our house while I was at work. That's a betrayal enough to justify divorce, don't you think? And after all this, do you really think saying I didn't intend it is an excuse that will work? I can no longer trust you. I'm sorry, but I don't intend to continue as your wife. Please sign the divorce papers and submit them to the registry office. And if you really are sorry, take full responsibility for your actions. Wait, just wait a second. No matter what you say, my mind won't change. So, that's that. Thank you for everything. Goodbye.
Hey, Holly!
With that, I hung up the phone on him. He then signed the divorce papers and submitted them to the office. As I requested, he paid the damages. I hadn't expected things to proceed so smoothly, but the certified mail had made his parents aware of the situation. They must have given him a push. As for the other woman. So you couldn't claim damages from her in the end? Right. It seems she didn't know he was married. I thought it would be obvious once she entered the house and saw the married man's environment, but given how she reacted, she probably really didn't know. So, I didn't pursue damages against her. Besides, I figured she would face her own karma eventually. I see. It turned out that after everything, the mistress had returned to the apartment she shared with her fiancé as if nothing had happened, only to be met with him calling off their engagement. Why? Why would you suddenly break off our engagement? Apparently, her fiancé had suspected her infidelity for some time and had hired a private investigator to look into it. Once her cheating was confirmed, he broke off the engagement and sought damages from her and my former husband. They are apparently having quite a dispute over it now. Is she still working at the clothing store? No, she quit right after that incident. It must have been awkward for her to see me. That makes sense. Saying something like she was living with her fiancé in that situation, she must have been too scared to face anyone at work. She resigned from the clothing store. I heard rumors that she was living with my ex-husband, but it's no longer my concern. There's one more thing, about that police officer at the time, I spoke to his supervisor. Uncle, were you really friends with his supervisor? I thought maybe you were just bluffing to intimidate him. What did his supervisor say? It turns out that being an officer has been problematic in general. His supervisor was quite upset after hearing my story. He's likely being retrained rigorously. In fact, I saw him being sternly instructed by his supervisor in front of the station recently. He's a police officer responsible for the safety of this town. I hope he takes a good look at himself and makes sure nothing like that ever happens again. And so, 6 months passed, and I gradually stopped reflecting on those events. Why are you here? I've been waiting. There's something I really need to talk about. My ex-husband, having ambushed me near my workplace, approached me. What could you possibly want to talk about so badly that you'd wait for me here? I have nothing left to discuss with you. Since then, I've broken up with her. We had constant fights because of everything that happened. Now, I'm living alone in an apartment near my parents' home. That's what you wanted to talk about? I couldn't care less about your current situation.
It's not just that.
Then what? Suddenly, my ex-husband knelt before me. Wait, what are you doing?
Because you said you wanted a divorce, I accepted it. But I've realized I want to be with you. Please, let's start over. I can't manage without you.
He loudly pleaded for reconciliation, attracting painful stares from people passing by. He probably thought that if others saw, I would agree. But it had the opposite effect. There's no way I would start over with you. You casually gave your house keys to your lover and let her into our home. And don't think kneeling down like this in public will change anything. I purposely raised my voice just like he had done. From the surrounding people, I heard comments like the man is in the wrong and that's creepy. He seemed to hear them too and muttered, "You didn't have to say it so loudly, fine then." And with that, he ran off as if fleeing. After that, I never saw him again.